Welcome to Season 5 of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast with Adina, Brian, Cris, and Steve, the biggest sci-fi podcast in the galaxy. The adventure is just beginning here at the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, and we invite you to come aboard the Starship Tangent. We know you'll enjoy the conversation, the laughter, the banter back and forth, and most of all, friends who love hanging out to talk about all things science fiction. Set your phasers to fun. Here we go.
Good day, listeners to the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. We begin Season 5 with a reminder that we are accessible via our email address, thebigscifipodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook and Instagram pages, and of course, at the wonderfully supportive Trek Geeks website. Please look for us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, especially this one. So without further ado, the Merriam and her brother Daniel Webster's dictionary lists the definition of the word cult as a great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work, such as a film. Today we are going to discuss such a film. Now, a cult is usually associated with events or people. The Jonestown Society, who followed Jim Jones, ended in the loss of so many lives of its followers who, as the expression goes, drank the Kool-Aid, while others are devoted to a specific morning coffee beverage that they can't live without, or they will happily purchase the next whatever phone is coming available to them at whatever price it might be. However, cult followings can cause a film like this one we are discussing. Brazil, Adina, if you don't mind.
I won't stop until you stop me.
Cut. Thank you. And it can turn a flop into an acclaimed success. This film, which debuted in December 1985, costing $15 million to make, and earned a whopping less than $10 million in ticket sales. Since that time, the film has been considered a great success. Wired magazine called it number 5 of its top 20 sci-fi films of all time, and Time magazine listed in the top 100 films of all time. Pretty impressive stuff. Now, this is not unusual for a film to do better later in its life than it did in its debut. Think of It's a Wonderful Life. I think you'll agree on that, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And Buckaroo Banzai are just two examples of what I'm referring to. But a film of this type and style will not suit everyone's liking. And today, the crew of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast will delve into this movie. But before we begin, and I know you know us all, here are the members of in alphabetical order, of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast. Adina?
I'm sorry, I just have it stuck in my head. I won't go.
Captain, they put Brazil music in our ears. Oh, I can't help myself. Brian?
Please stop singing. I will beg you. Please stop singing. I am begging you. No, hey, it's Brian from Ohio, and we watched this movie called Brazil.
I'm glad you did. Thank you. Third member of the crew is missing at this moment. He'll be back shortly at a predetermined moment in his life cycle. That's our good friend Cris. And
what does that even mean?
I don't know. I just had to come up with something on the cuff.
I like it.
And make him sound like he's like a caterpillar going from
emerging from his chrysalis. It's Cris. We'll be Cris.
The chrysalis. Oh,
hey, there you go.
There we go. Or me, I'm Flicker Farkle, or better yet, I'm Steve. And that's a reference to an old TV show, Laughing, and yes, I am that old. Today, since we will be in topsy-turvy, we're going to do something a little different. Before we begin our discussions, I want each one of us to say in a rating of 1 to 10, using the Brian scientific method that we have for when we review films. And after having discussed our discussion, we're going to reevaluate our numbers and see if they still hold true or they're unchanged based on the discussion we'll have. So First off the bat, well, based on her song, I think I know
I go
where
for I
Adina
go
might
first.
be. Go ahead, you go first.
Well, I do love the film. That said, it's really hard to give a number to it, especially because there are parts that I love a lot and parts that I think
Right.
are less stellar.
And just for clarification, the Brian Donahue rating system is a 1 to 5 stars, not 1 to 10.
I'm
So-
sorry, you were correct. See,
Okay.
I appreciate
There's
the
so much
correction.
singing going on, you lost your mind.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the 3.5-ish. But if I was just gonna do, say, maybe the first half of the movie, I'm closer to a 5.
Okay.
The second half of the movie is
Interesting.
closer to a 2.5, 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and when I was rewatching it in preparation for this, when I was first watching it, like that first half hour, I was sitting there like, oh my God, I am so happy Steve is making me watch this movie again. I haven't seen this movie in so many years. I do love this film. This is great. Thank you, Steve. And then for the second half, I'm like, oh, this is why I don't rewatch this very often. And I'll explain more about where it really starts to lose me
we'll
with
get
the
into
problems
that.
I have with it. But
And Brian, since this was the first time you've ever seen it, right?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
So you gave it the cold watch.
Yes.
And how did
I
you
did.
feel about it?
I actually watched it all at once. Sometimes this is a long film, almost 2.5 hours, right?
yeah,
So I thought I was only going to be able to watch it like an hour at a time, but I ended up fitting it all in. I couldn't turn it off. I'm giving it half a star.
Half a star.
Yes.
Wow.
More to come. I am shocked that Dina gave it 3.5. So I'm interested in hearing, and we'll see if I gain some stars hearing you wonderful, smart.
I'm on a mission to
fans
convince you to give
well,
this.
good luck, because the only reason I watched the whole thing was because I just had to see how it ended. That being said, it's one of those films. I am going to point out what I thought was positive about the film. So I'm not just going to be a Debbie Downer and be all negative.
No, and that's fine. And that's
folks love the film so much. So
well, then that's the whole point, is that everyone is going to have a different opinion of a film, book, TV show, whatever. What someone loves, others go, my God, that's horrible. And you're going, wait a minute, did we watch the same movie, watch the same show, read the same book, whatever the case may be? And that's fine.
Yep.
Cris is not here, so we'll get his final decision at the end. This is definitely, I give it a 4. I truly love this movie. A 5, I don't know what film I could ever, maybe Willy Wonka. That might be a 5, that's in my feelings. But this is definitely a solid 4 as far as I'm concerned. So for the question of when was the first time you saw the movie, Brian, we know it was just the other day.
And I haven't even heard of this film until you guys started talking about it some months back. So I started looking it up online, and I just finally watched it this past week. So,
Adina, when did you first see the film?
Sometime in high school. So sometime in the 1990s, somewhere between 1990 and 1992. And I think it is important, and this might affect why I like the film, is in high school, I did watch a lot of Monty Python. I did watch The Life of Brian, The Holy Grail, The Meaning of Life. And so when I don't remember how I learned about this movie, but when I did, I was probably predisposed to liking it because I liked that whole, group of Monty Python stuff. And so, one question I have for Brian is, have you been exposed to a lot of Monty Python, and are you generally a fan of that?
That's a good question. I've seen Search for the Holy Grail. I've seen a few other things here and there. I don't know if I could name them all. Familiar with them. Not like a huge fan. Like, if someone's watching the Holy Grail, I'll watch it if I have to. But yeah, I mean, I didn't. I probably laughed only once in this film. Like, I didn't really see much humor in it at all. So.
Yeah, because it is what I've noticed over the years in people who like versus not so keen on Monty Python is it is a certain kind of humor. It is a British kind of humor, and people either like it or they hate it. There is not much in between.
And I laughed my face off at the Holy Grail. I mean, I did. And
Holy Grail
there's other
special. Yeah, that was special.
Right.
Like,
Unique for sure.
Yes.
Classic of theirs. If you're gonna, that was probably a standout thing. But I like other British comedy too. Through the years that have come through, particular that as a kid I watched on PBS, would show British comedies. And so I feel like I understand the dryness of it, but yeah, just for me, I didn't see much of that in the film besides, how just absolutely whimsical and it's a very physical type of acting in this film. So
yes, it is.
That comes out. That I do see very, very much so.
I saw this movie in December of 1985. Being the fact that I was a big fan of Monty Python and knew the work of Terry Gilliam, I was looking forward to seeing this movie, and I wasn't disappointed when I saw it at all. But again, there wasn't. I saw it in an art house theater. It wasn't, in general distribution. It was in very limited distribution. So I had to go out of my way to go and see it. And I did see it. So yeah, I've seen it then and a number of times. And even my wife, Elaine, said, I said, do you want to watch it with me or not? She goes, no, I want to watch it because it's been years since she saw it. And, being the fact that, I've loved Monty Python, and I just love that type of dry British humor that works so well. But in this one, it's darker. It's a dark comedy. That's exactly what it is.
It's a dystopian thing, right? They're showing a dystopia. And that was one of the things I was also thinking, because I almost was going to make, my husband or my older child watch it with me. But as I was watching it, I was like, and this also might be some of why, Brian, you rated it so low, is I was thinking to myself, I don't think they're going to, I think one of the reasons I still like it is a little bit more nostalgia more than anything else. I think coming into this now, again, like we've talked about other movies where it's good to watch if you kind of want to be well versed in the genre and kind of hit all these milestones.
Right.
But besides that, I don't know if I can recommend this film to like a new view. Like if someone says, hey, I'm looking for all the kind of cool science fiction things to watch because I love science fiction, I don't know if I would tell them to necessarily watch this unless they're looking for historical, like deep dives into the genre.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does make all the sense. And you're absolutely right. And again, this is not a film you're just going to go, hey, it's Saturday night, let's watch Brazil. No, you're going to say, if you know what their likings lean to, if they, if they enjoy or find interesting this dystopian type of lifestyle that these people had to go through, then you say, I've got a film I recommend you to see. You may or may not like it, but I do think it's one worth seeing. Yeah,
but I think when people think of dystopian films these days, they'll think of things like Hunger Games and stuff. And this is not, it's not a modern dystopian film, I guess.
No. But in moving into the special effects, the miniatures, the way they built everything, I mean, to me, this is definitely Terry Gilliam's thumbprint all over it with the effects and everything that he put into it, that it would appear in other Monty Python films or so on. So what do they stand up? Are they still good? Do you think so?
No, they're horrible. To today's standards, but if, as I was watching it, and here's where I want to be positive about it, as I was watching it, I was trying to imagine watching it back in the 1980s. Okay. And I think some of the miniatures for the time were excellent, and some of the effects were interesting, like, where I went, oh, I bet that took a lot of hard work to figure out how to make it look that good, you know? So for the time, I would say maybe was good. I think though, there's also a part of it that is supposed to be cheesy and not like super duper real. I mean, it's all supposed to be kinds of whimsical
and a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's meant to be over the top, like all the pipes and everything, and all the connections, all the pipes and the wires. It's meant to be a little ricriculous.
Everyone with a tiny little TV and a big, magnifying screen in front of it, and then they could have the shot where you see their faces, and
that part, the computers are almost a little like steampunk almost.
Yes, they are, definitely.
Yeah. Hey, did you guys see Bilbo Baggins in this film?
Bilbo Baggins.
Oh, the actor who played Mr. Kurtz something.
Yes,
right. Yes.
The guy at the office.
Yes,
who kept asking for help.
Ian Holmes' character.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was Bilbo Baggins.
He played. Yes.
Yep.
Really?
In the Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
I'm sorry. He'll always be the robot from Alien. He'll be Ash. He'll always be Ash to me when I see him.
So, if I may, interject a little Star Trek thing.
Yes.
Patrick Stewart's Making It So recent autobiography, he talks about him quite a bit. Quite a bit. There is a chunk where he talked about him. Yes.
Oh, did he do some stage stuff with him?
I think so. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I'm trying to. There is so overwhelming number of stage people that Stewart has worked with over the years.
Right.
I'm not keeping them all straight because there were some people that he might have crossed paths, some people he really worked with, whatever. So I don't remember which level, but it was, he went into that. Ian Holm for a while had a lot of issues and was off stage for a while and had to get back on. It was interesting. It was very interesting. But yes.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, speaking about characters, was there one particular character that stood out that you rooted for, liked the most? That you felt a connection to.
I mean, I can't remember all their names. The characters, the main character, I was definitely pulling for
Lowry. Sam Lowry.
Get in here.
But I mean, for me, Robert De Niro's character made the film. And I don't know, Steve, you have gone on record on the Big Sci-Fi saying it's maybe it was off. We weren't recording, saying it was one of his finest. I don't know if I agree with you that way, but he definitely brought some charm and another level to his character. So that was, when he was around, I found myself being the most entertained.
Adina?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Sam is the most well-developed character, and it is designed. You should be rooting for him. So yes, I do find myself rooting for him. I think, but deliberately. There's no
against who's the boss, Mom.
Yeah, well, it's Sam against everything. I mean, in this
it really
film.
is. Yeah.
It is really everything and everyone, and that's kind of the point and kind of the humor in it. It's just everything else is so ridiculous in their society and their life. He's the only one who's kind of like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But yet he's also on the inside of it too. At least he starts out that way, where he's just happily pushing paper, and he knows how to work the system and live inside the system and function just fine. And it isn't until things start to break down a little bit around him that is where everything gets chaotic.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Is the actress who played his love interest in this film the same gal who played in RoboCop?
No, that was Nancy Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a similarity to their faces. Okay. But yes, that was Nancy.
Look that up. I should have looked that up. I'm sorry, but
no, that was Nancy Allen. It was different. But her character was interesting because in the Wikipedia on it, the director wasn't happy with her, and he kind of limited her to the number of scenes. But she's an integral part of the story, in that this is this whatever love interest that he connects with, and he'll totally uplift change his lifestyle, go against everything he ever believed in, just to find out who this woman is. So in a sense, it's an interesting love story.
And
it's a very interesting one-sided love story.
One-sided. But one of my favorite scenes in the film is when he climbs in the truck with her and he's trying, and she wants nothing to do with him, keeps trying to get rid of him, and he just keeps hanging on. It was almost, it was almost Bugs Bunny and, or the Wile E. Coyote type humor of him just
that's the humor. Like that's some of the great humor.
That I thought was pretty great.
Yeah. As for me, you hit it right on the nose, Brian. Robert De Niro. Now, I'd seen him in other films. I saw Taxi Driver and other films like that. But when he appeared on this is one of those where you go, this guy stole every scene he was in. Every scene, and that's why, to me, it's like, when he first shows up, and you're like, who is this guy? With a gun and a mask and all this, ninja uniform, and he's going to repair our heating system as an independent contractor. You're like, and then when he, at the very end, he jumps on the wire and goes zipping down to the bottom, you go, yeah, that's what a hero is. He shows up out of no place and leaves without saying another word. Honestly,
Steve, Jonathan Pryce, Sam Lowry, I feel like the scenes with Robert De Niro was his best in the film, too.
They worked really well together, yeah.
Yeah, they had great chemistry in those scenes. I felt like the comedic responses that Pryce had to De Niro's holding that gun at him, and I just thought was fantastic physical comedy, and was a bright light in this film for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the one thing I have to say that's completely ridiculous, I have to tell a real world story for a second.
Sure,
that from the summer. So I do have a landline phone. I didn't for a while.
Say that again.
I have a landline phone.
What's landline mean? I'm like just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, of course I know.
You know what landline? Landline is. Hello, Martha. Hi, this is Bob. Can you get Rebecca on the phone for me? Yeah. Thank you.
I had gotten rid of it, but then I was having some time when my oldest son was a baby. My cell phone was on the fritz, and we did have an emergency, and I couldn't call 911 from my cell phone. The next day, I got a landline, and I have it for that reason. Anyway, over the summer, it wasn't working. So now I've had it for a long time. When I call, and so being able to call to talk to someone to figure out a repair, it was hard enough. When I finally talked to somebody, because it is through Verizon, and on their website, all their website is about Fios. It's about the mobile. It's really like impossible to find the information of where do you call if you have landline issues, because I also assume that you bundled stuff with stuff, and I have not. I just have it for my landline. So if I talk to a person and they're like, okay, so what's your PIN? I gave them a number and they're like, yeah, no, that's not it. And they're like, well, we'll send you we'll text you something. And they tell me your cell ends in like some 4 digits. I'm like, no, that's not my cell phone number. And they're like, well, we'll email you and you're H blah, blah, blah at Gmail. No, that's not my email address. In their system, they have the wrong stuff for me.
Oh, wow.
And we went in circles. They can't authorize a repair until that gets fixed. But how? Sure. But the thing is, how do they fix it? They have to call my The only other way to validate I am is calling my landline that's not working. So we went in circles, and I eventually was able to talk to someone who could figure out some way to circumvent their process, got a human being out here. And then, the human being came and fixed my thing. And then we all got the other stuff sorted out. But it was a complete ridiculousness. But I think what happened is at some point a few years ago, they changed systems and there was a database corruption. When I log in, they're like, this was really funny. This woman, she's like, well, you have, I can't access your account. I'm like, I can access my account just fine. I'm logged into my account. Everything when I'm logged in. So something in their back end system, when they changed databases, which changed my account number, because there was the original one when I set up the thing, and now there's a newer, longer digit one. I think something got corrupted in the background there. But when I'm watching this movie, I'm like, oh my God, this is exactly what happened with me and Verizon over the summer.
Okay, that's why you told that story.
Yes. And that gets into the whole question of bureaucracy.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Is that?
Yes.
I mean, Adina, you work for a large corporation.
I work for a large defense contractor, a very large corporation. Large.
And you have procedures, processes, mail stops, those things you have to deal with. And sometimes you go, no, just give it to me. And they go, no, you haven't filled out the correct requisition form.
Yep. So there are, in a large corporation such as mine, there are IT systems. And if, like, say my computer breaks, I have to fill in a form. And if I didn't fill it in correctly, they'll close it, not tell me how to open the correct one. We've all had that happen. My office location is not right in their system either. It has nothing to do. It's actually came up the other day. Someone who I'm working with, I've joined a new team recently, and they're like, "Oh, and so you're in building blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, no, that was 3 or 4 offices ago. I gave up on trying to get them to update my office." And this was not even, because now since the pandemic, I'm mostly home. This isn't even that.
How do we know, Steve? We're actually talking to the real Adina. She's got this phone issue where they can't confirm her identity, and now her own work. Is this even the real Adina we're talking to?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I cloned myself.
We need to, as Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify.
But my phone is broken. How can you verify?
Exactly right.
That was the thing. So what's really interesting is, so that movie was back in the 80s, and there is some aspect. Now, I think even then we were already starting to live in that world of, but yes, it has gotten a little crazier.
Yeah. And the whole bit with the ducts. I mean, conduits. Everything has to be done correctly, specifically. Otherwise, the building inspector will reject the project and tie up your house, and it'll never get done, and you'll be fighting forever on that. My in-laws, they were going to, when they had this one property they were living at, they were going to split into 2 separate properties. And these are older couple, and they fought with the city, and they finally gave up. They finally had to quit because it was another thing and another thing. So the metaphor of this film, of the frustration of bureaucracy, is there, and they did it really well. And I think that was the whole point of, especially when like the 2 idiot repairmen show up, and Laurie says, "Do you have the form?" Because they know that they don't have the form. It's very well done.
So all that was the great stuff of the movie. I mean, like that that was all the great stuff. I mean, that was what the movie was all about.
Yeah.
Well, you felt that in particular, like Joe Layton, the Joe Layton character running around trying to get the right papers to get the right thing moving, and her frustration, and finally just rebelling against it and driving that truck, man, And so they did that really well, because I found myself actually in a movie that I was finding myself not caring much about. I was really aggravated at the bureaucracy. I mean, I was like, holy cow, okay, they're just pounding. I mean, they pounded it home. It wasn't just, here's a mention of it. It was throughout the whole film. Right.
The whole sequence where she's got the paperwork. Do you have the stamp? No, you have to go back to this department to get the stamp. But they sent me over here. Well, I can't do this unless you have the stamp. I have to go. And then you feel like, okay, I'm at the DMV.
Or in a lot of places in this country in the healthcare system.
Yeah. Yes, exactly right. So it is understandable and relatable to many people. Was there a specific scene in the film that just, it didn't have to be like groundbreaking, or it set the tone for the film, but was that one scene that you go, wow, that is a great shot? Anything
the big chamber where he's in the chair and he's strapped in and his buddy is supposed to do work on him. That whole chamber scene I felt was visually, I felt looked great. Even that might be one thing in the film that I feel holds up today. That whole chamber thing, the huge, that was pretty. I bought that hook, line, and sinker.
Did it remind you of the chamber that Patrick Stewart's character in the X-Men movie,
Professor X?
Professor X, thank you, would wheel out to that center section. He would be out there, and then everything would be around him. That always, whenever I saw that movie, that went right back to Brazil in that scene.
Well, yeah, and I wonder too, because there have been other films. I know I've seen similar visuals in other films, and I can't think if it was before this film though. And I wonder if that's something this film did, was with this huge visual with something in the center and a walkway to it. I wonder if this was one of the first times that type of visual was used. Because I've seen it all. You see it all over. It pops up every now and then in film. The same basic concept. So I wonder if if that was an original thing.
It may be, and it almost looks like you're inside the stack of a nuclear reactor.
Yeah,
yes, exactly, something of that size.
Yeah,
Adina, is there any? Go ahead, Chris. Chris. Brian, excuse me.
You don't know who I am either.
I'm losing track of everybody. I don't know anymore.
He needs the right form to verify we are who we say we are.
That's right. You're going to say something.
I just have to say Robert De Niro again. Just the whole. Anytime he showed up, it was pretty fantastic, and it was the most fun for me in the film. Besides him, Lowry getting kicked out of the truck and still holding on, and
I know,
just
in the front, on the box, on the top, all over the place, because he won't give up. It's his. And it was the woman of his dreams.
I don't know if I've seen Price this young in a film either that I recall.
Most people think of him from Parts of the Caribbean.
Yeah. I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff, but you're right. That's a big one. So it was kind of cool to see him young and what type of an actor he was there. Cause I feel like he was pretty versatile in this film. Again, trying to find the positive.
Thank you. Any one particular scene? I know which one it is for me that just caught me when I first saw it.
I don't know. I mean, I think every time you got into a new environment with all the details, like in his apartment or in his workplace, or then in the new office, where the new office is really a half office with a wall down the middle, with a half of a desk, and the stuff that they gave him, like all those kinds of things. So not the big grand scene like what you guys were discussing a minute ago, but more all the small things. And like even the first time we're introduced to Sam, where he's plugging in a thing in his phone, and you've got all the things on the phone, and all of his technology in his apartment is half working.
I kind of wish they would have. I'm going to be really raw and honest with you guys.
Sure, okay? Go ahead. Please.
I feel like they made a critical error, for me at least, in how I like to see stories. I hated seeing him first thing in the film with the wings on, flying through the clouds looking for Jill. Like to me, that made me go, come on, because I saw the timestamp on the thing when I hit play, and I'm like, 2.5 hours of this guy in wings floating, so for me, I was kind of turned off instantly because of that. I wish they would have started with the bureaucracy and then given us, then he go do the cheesy flying with the wings on thing, looking for your true love or whatever, or really freedom. She's freedom for him is what it is. It's not just love, it's escape, it's freedom. And this woman who is fighting against the bureaucracy and just, so.
No, you brought up a good point, because it almost seemed like a lost lead, if what you're saying. You're like, okay, this is what the movie's going to be, and then he's woken up in the morning with that beautiful sound of the phone ringing.
I get it. I mean, again, trying to find the pot. I get it. For me, it made me go, oh, for crying out loud.
No, it's that's a excellent observation, and that's the whole point why we're doing this, because we are looking at a film going, what is it that we like? What is it we don't like? Why do we come to a conclusion of how we feel about a film? And why is a film successful? And why is a film a failure? And these bits and pieces, when it was first released, what you felt may have been what affected why its distribution wasn't good, or why it didn't do very well in the theaters. For me, the one shot that I've absolutely to this day adore is is when we first go into where he works. And it's that long shot of all those people shuffling paper at all those machines. And it's over and over. And it looks like it's 10 miles long. And I just went, to this day, I'm going, how did they shoot that shot? It's absolutely a beautiful job of reshooting and re-editing and reshooting and just it made it seem extremely seamless.
That scene, Steve, made me wonder if you snuck a musical into us. Like some of the scenes were so whimsical, timed in such a way that you could imagine they were about to break out into a song and dance.
Mm-hmm. So, they were choreographed. They were truly choreographed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They had to be,
Yeah. And that's the scene that I went, wow. And again, that's the scale of the film. They do that. There was a controversy in this film when it was released. Oh, really? In that the head of Universal, a fellow by the name of Sid Seinberg, he didn't like the film. He did not want it released the way it was. He wanted a happy ending.
I read that too, yeah.
But Sam is sitting there like all happy, singing his song at the end.
Oh my.
But he did not like it. And
Star Trek figure.
I've actually seen that particular recutted episode, the version. Really? And it's not good because the darkness of the film is washed away. And now the one that's been available is the original Terry Gilliam cut of the film, which is what you saw on Prime Video. But the other one, not good. So this is where an example of where the studio says, I want it this way. And the director says, I want it this way. And who's right?
Right.
And in this case, it turns out it's he had people editing the film without him, even Terry Gilliam knowing that they were doing this. So one of the little interesting things about it, I wrote a real quick question. Do you guys like Sam's little car?
I thought it was claustrophobic.
That was a real car.
Really?
Yes, that's why I want to bring it up.
Mine's post World
War II. Huh? No, it's actually a Messerschmitt. Oh. Post World War II, Germany was under restrictions of the types of cars they could build, and because of what they rebuilding. So they manufactured these little cars called the Messerschmitts, or if you ever
heard
seen
that
one,
term before.
And there's another little one called an Isetta, which is these little tiny cars that the Germans made after World War II.
I knew about the Trabis, the Trabants. I learned about that when I studied Germany.
Those are horrible Russian Fiats, but anyway,
I know they were available in like Easter, in East Germany after the war. There were a couple like when I was studying German in college, there were a couple funny movies made about a family traveling around.
That was. Can I interject here because it's around the car thing that he drove, which was a little one-person-ish car, right? Maybe was there a person in the back potentially? I don't know.
Yes, there was actually. They could sit in front
cockpit,
to back,
airplane, fighter jet type style.
Hence the Messerschmitt designation.
Okay. So, one of the hardest scenes to watch, or parts of this movie, was that opening family. How they got that gentleman's name wrong, his last name, and the turmoil that caused, and that it was just impossible to reverse. And then those straitjackets that they would put people in. That was a little disturbing. If there's a disturbing part of the film for me, it was that part, and then this poor family that's traumatized, and then he sees their trauma, but he doesn't know exactly how to react, especially when he tries to take the check to her. He's trying to be gentle with her and sympathetic, but really failing at it tremendously. So that was I would say that was the most thought-provoking part of it, because you have the bureaucracy side of it where you go, oh my gosh, this exhaustive paper pushing and rules and regulations. You got to go here, you got to go there. But I think that's one positive thing about the film. They showed how that actually affected the real people, or the people that were powerless to do anything about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that was effective storytelling.
Yeah, that whole sequence with in where they live is so Charles Dickenish that you see them.
Oh yeah,
the difference in the tiers of the wealthy who eat mush for dinner, and these other people who are just struggling to survive.
My complications.
Oh,
to
the
complications.
Did you just say Dickenish too?
You did.
Dickon.
Is that a Dickenish?
Charles
Dickenish. Dickenish. Yeah.
I don't. I hope
it's okay. I like it.
I thought it was Dickensian.
Dickensian?
Seriously.
Really?
I
Okay.
actually thought that was a word that's what that meant.
Interesting.
I could be wrong, but
I digress.
We'll let the people at Marion and or brother Daniel Webster come and check with us on that. And then, of course, that's what got me talking about this film some episodes ago when we watched Star Trek Insurrection, and I referred to the mask that they wore, and when the plastic surgeon is yanking on her face, and that's all I can think about was.
And I gotta say that held up when they were stretching her face. I was watching it going, how did they make that look so real? It looks like they're stretching her face.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And then the terrific visual of, or horrific, depending on your point of view of him stretching the plastic around her face.
Yes.
You know, like, ugh.
Then they show her afterwards and she looks gorgeous.
The person who played that doctor, I kept looking at him and thinking he looks so much like the guy who plays Garrick. It's not the same guy.
It's not him, no.
But
I see why you thought that,
but
though.
it was like, oh my God, this guy does actually look like Andrew Robinson.
That guy's been in a lot of films.
He has.
Jim Broadbent? Yeah.
Yes.
People think of, I always go back to him, seeing him in the movie Moulin Rouge.
Okay. Oh yeah.
He was in that. Yeah. And he's been in many, many British indie films. One of those, just you're going to see him wherever you see him. So I had to get a Star Trek reference in here, folks, comparing one to the other. But then again, I also look at the character of Jill Layton, and then I look at the character that Charlize Theron did in Mad Max Fury Road, and I'm going, there's a lot of similarities there. And when they made Fury Road, did they see this type of character who drove a giant truck and was kick-ass tough?
If I had to guess, there probably wasn't a connection there. But when I read this in your show notes, and after seeing because I read your show notes, I think you got it to us before I watched it.
Okay.
And then I watched the film and then read the show notes again, and I'm like, I'll be gosh darn, I see it, Steve. Yeah, it reminds me.
Yeah, it is. She's just, and she was, I mean, the truck was so cool. And again, giant truck, tiny little car that he's stuck with because of the bureaucracy of giving him the worst kind of vehicle to drive. And she's driving these giant truck and
on very narrow streets.
Yes. Yes. And that whole chase sequence with the weird looking little police cars. That is, I guess, the scale of the film where they try to do, that's where the humor they make, the police look foolish, like when they're practicing singing Christmas carols, when they're these frightening looking police officers, or when they're inside when Lowry's inside one of the police cars and he's looking for Jill, and they go, you can't do that. You can't look at those people. You can't check in. Yeah, you're breaking the rules. Don't do that. And they're very dry in their way of saying it. Yeah. And again, that's that dry British humor coming through.
Yeah, and everyone trying their best to act like they're perfectly happy, perfectly normal, perfectly comfortable.
With my complications,
and at ease
to my complications.
With how everything is, I think, again, the success of this film and its storytelling is really bringing that across well, is that here's this one character, but of course he represents probably, certainly other characters, even if they're not shown or mentioned in the film,
that probably think the same way, that want freedom, that understand what's happening and how crazy it is.
Yes.
And it's really like, yeah.
I'm sounding like Brian is going to up his star count.
He might. We'll see. Now, here's another thing, Brian. Since this is the first time you were watching the movie, and I'm going back to when I first saw the film, and when Lowry's in the chair and his best friend in the world is going to torture him, picks up that one instrument, and you're going, no, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this. And then all of a sudden, all the ninja warriors show up and they save the day. And you're thinking, did you think that was real? Or did you think it ends up being just a dream sequence?
I thought it was real.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the first time I watched it.
I didn't see the dream sequence thing coming, although the signs were all there because of all the other dream sequences in the film. But I think that's why that one worked so well.
Where it started to give itself away was when Harry Tuttle's character is consumed in paper. And you go, wait a minute.
Yes.
What happened here?
Yep.
Then you go, okay, so now something's
And then when you
changing.
get to the funeral scene, that was utterly ridiculous.
But and then utterly ridiculous. But also, I mean, the paper scene, like that's what happens. People drown in paperwork and can't do anything.
Or not just drown, but get lost in the bureaucracy. That kind of, you get shuffled back and forth and nothing gets happened. Especially, again, I think a lot of people in the healthcare, that can relate to getting passed around, or people in school, things get passed around. Yeah.
And that's where this film is layered with metaphors about metaphors of metaphors. So that when you finally get to the end of the film and you find out that it was just all in his mind, and they say, we've lost him.
And now he gets to sing the happy Brazil song for the rest of his life.
He gets to hum it and you don't know whatever happened to Jill. We don't know where she ended up being or whatever. But that's
she married Rambo at the end.
Well, and this is where, when I was saying at the beginning, the second half of the movie, or at some point, like I was like, ugh. Her kissing him, her kind of falling for him, that 180, I'm sorry. No.
She was way out of his league.
And again, her initial reaction to him, I don't know you, get away from me. That made sense.
Yeah.
To get in such a short period of time, a complete and utter 180 where now she's willing to kiss him. I'm sorry. No.
I see what you're saying.
So what bothered me,
not just kiss him.
Yeah. So what bothered me is at first I was like, oh, maybe that was part of the dream sequence too. But then no, that was before he got captured and was in the chair. But the only way that will work for me is maybe really he got maybe something happened really before, and maybe that had to have been like a dream too. Because no, you don't go that quickly from being.
You do in Hollywood though.
And I hate that. And again, that's the insta love thing that a lot of us are like, stop doing that. Women don't fall for guys like that. That does not happen.
And you go back to
there's a rare occasion.
Rare, stupidly
extremely rare. Yeah.
Well, that goes back to
we're
the
just
film.
Not that interesting. I'm just kidding.
It just takes time. It just takes time. It doesn't happen that quickly.
Yes.
You could, from when you meet someone.
I know now. I know, and you guys probably do. You know, people who have an intuition that maybe they just met who they're going to spend the rest of their life with. I know people that. My
that's rare.
Wife's grandfather, who's now 96, his wife has since passed, but that he knew he the way he tells the story at least. So maybe I should be fair in that.
Yeah,
because he knew, and I've heard of that happening with other people too. They just know. Now it doesn't mean they acted upon it. They had to go through a process of winning that person's heart and affection. So that's what you're talking about.
That's right. That process didn't happen.
Yes, it almost always has to happen.
Yes.
Whereas I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think I was just going to repeat myself and say the same thing again.
Well, then we go back to a film like The Terminator.
What?
Where Sarah Connor falls in love with Reese in a very short period of time, where he has to prove that he's there to save her. And in doing so, she falls in love with him. And had John Connor is created because of that. And we've had that discussion we had that discussion one time and we went, I think the same thing, Adina. You said that doesn't happen.
Right.
Guess what, guys?
What?
Confession time. I've never seen the original Terminator.
I feel like you confessed this once before.
Never mind then.
It is
moving right along.
It is one that you should watch. It really is.
And that's probably one we have to talk about at some point too.
Oh
soon.
yeah, that's one reason I bring it up again, because we got
to talk about
been on my radar. That's major. We need to.
It is.
Yeah.
I think when we had the discussion, or we were talking about that, and I said, "Oh yeah, the one thing that bottom line at Terminator is it's a love story," and you went, "No, it's not." But in a sense that this, as much as this is a love story,
this is not a love story. This is a Christmas movie.
It really is. You're right.
You're right. Just like
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. This is a Christmas movie.
We all said Die Hard at the exact same time. Right there.
That's the official, unofficial Christmas movie of all time.
But it is. It's completely if that's what makes a Christmas movie, where it happens at Christmas and people are giving each other Christmas gifts and everything is decorated with wreaths and everything. This is a Christmas movie.
And believe it or not, it came out at Christmas. So yes, I guess it works.
Again, Die Hard, it's a Christmas movie.
Well, technically it didn't work originally. It wasn't until sometime later that people felt like it worked. Anyway,
Kristen did that. Kristen did that. Again, this is one of those movies that elicits specific feelings about it. And, we were talking about Monty Python. When The Holy Grail came out, I went to go see it with my friend Dean Wilkerson. And Dean hated British humor. And he hated Monty Python. And I made him go see it.
Well,
and
I'm going to fart in his general direction.
And no, it's just
come here and I'll bite your ankles off.
That's right. See, he laughed through the whole film.
Adina just said that on the podcast.
That's right.
You did, didn't I?
Yes, you did, because it's memorable. But anyway, the point is that he said, I hate it. He laughed through the whole film, and when it was all done, I said, you love it? He goes, no, I still hate it. I said, give it up, accept the fact that you can go and not hate liking something and walk out liking it. And it's okay to change your mind.
Absolutely.
It's okay
absolutely okay.
To reposition where you feel about something.
Yes.
Any other points of view? I'm really missing Chris. I wish he was here with us.
Yeah, we miss Chris. We miss you, buddy.
Sometimes you get what you asked for.
No way. He's knocking at the Zoom door.
It's a Christmas miracle, Marge. We're getting Christmas.
I told you, it's a Christmas movie. So it's like a Christmas episode that we're having here a little before Christmas.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, hello. Sorry, I was just going to hop in quietly and...
No, we were just talking about you, literally.
We really were.
Steve said the words, I miss Chris. And Adina goes, oh, guess what?
And we were just going to wrap up. So we really need your input here.
Okay, I don't know. I'm so curious to see what everyone else thinks.
We're just going to have to listen to the episode later.
Yeah, that was a movie, and I had to read the.
Hey, it was a Christmas movie.
I think Chris and I are on the same side here.
Yeah,
it's just leaning towards the same direction.
It's intriguing, really well done. I don't even know if the symbolism is the right word, but just all the reoccurring themes, I don't know what glass that is, where you can sort of see through it, but it's, you know what I mean?
The glass bricks. They're those bricks.
That just seemed to be reoccurring. The central vac system, duct system. I don't know. It's one of those movies where I'm like, it's definitely not a bad movie because it's well made, but I don't know what to make of it. It's where I fall. And just everything is like, even the phones are unnecessarily complicated, which I enjoy. Like the fact that you have to plug it into the right thing before you can answer a phone call.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's you're echoing a few opinions here. Coming in late in the broadcast, I'm sorry to say, but yeah. But when the movie was over, did you go, I just wasted 2 hours of my life? Or did you go, that was an interesting film?
It's definitely not a waste, because it's like, because I love that stuff, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I want to do more research on it and just learn everything about it. But at the same time, it's kind of disturbing. And I'm like, I don't want to have weird dreams tonight, because the same thing happened when we did the review for
Moonfall. Oh no, I'm sorry.
PTSD. Stop it.
But there is a Moonfall connection in this movie, which I have to verify it, but we'll talk about it in a second. But why can't I think of it? Blade Runner 2049. I liked a lot, but I had like very strange dreams after watching it.
Interesting.
Even though I had seen it when it came out. So it's one of those ones where I'm like, do I want to do more research into it and have weird sleeps? But I also just want to know like the behind the scenes. I don't know. I just feel like I need more information to flesh out why the world was the way it was, or is, I should say.
Yeah.
Well, we were discussing about how so many metaphors in this film that you bring up, and how bureaucracy was like the central core of the story, about fighting bureaucracy and trying to free yourself to do the right thing. We asked this question earlier. I'm going to ask you now. Was there a favorite character that you had in the film? The one that you liked the best?
Oh, I have to say, I think it's got to be the I don't know which one of the repair guys, but them as a pair were just kind of ridiculous and kind of funny.
Interesting.
And
Bob Hopkins, who played
Bob
one
Haskins.
of the Haskins, yes, better known from being in Roger Rabbit. People think about. I think of him from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then his coworker
in Hook. He was in Hook.
Oh, he was in Hook.
Smee.
I haven't seen Hook in a long time.
Yeah, and then his idiot friend who kept repeating everything he said, with the big thick glasses on.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a musical note about the film, which you may or may not have noticed, Brian, but at the very beginning of the film, the gentleman that causes the bug to mess up and cause the problem, that is Elton John's percussionist, Ray Cooper.
I'll be gosh darn.
Yep. And he was actually, in looking at the credits, he ended up being a musical consultant in the film as well. So there was a little Elton John tie in there that made my wife smile. But anyway.
So I want to confirm, maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I think is the Moonfall connection.
Okay.
Is that so? Moonfall was directed by, why can't I think of his name? He does all the disaster movies.
Roland Emmerich.
Roland Emmerich. So he also did The Day After Tomorrow. And I'm pretty sure, I got to verify this, but like it clicked partway through that Sam Lowry's boss at the beginning was the old man from The Day After Tomorrow who has the grandson, and he's like, oh, we have this scotch, we better drink this scotch, this will be our last. Pardon?
Ian Holmes?
That might be his name.
Played Bilbo Baggins in Lord of the Rings. We've already talked about that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I did not. Oh, you're right. That's the more famous, but I know him more from
That's cool. That's
Tomorrow.
Cool.
And I brought up, he was Ash from the film Alien.
Oh, okay.
The robot. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I know him from that. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's the older guy from The Day After Tomorrow who has the grandson who's really sweet.
So you picked the two characters that are in probably the smallest role in the film.
Yep, I think so.
Did you
like
rather Mutt and Jeff kind of characters, Abbott and Costello, or whatever you might want to say.
Right, like just like two comedic duos that aren't central, but it's also amusing just because I feel like in the last month or so, I've had to do a lot of repairs. I've had fridge issue or freezer issues, and I had to get my dryer replaced. And it's just like, man, like I'm glad that when someone comes in, I can trust them. I don't have to worry about them breaking in later because they're annoyed that I asked for a form.
How about your landline phone? Does your landline phone work okay?
Landline phone, I do not use anymore, but that's
Can
a
you
whole
spell
other...
that word again? What is a landline?
Landline
They're making
phone.
fun of me because I still have a landline phone. You see, you'll have to just listen to the episode, Chris, and catch all up on everything.
See, I'm funny. I thought, oh, surely this is going to be a very long episode. I can just kind of like jump in and join in for the other hour or so.
I would hope if we had to spend 2 hours talking about this film, we either loved it and every nuance and detail was perfect, or we just sat there like with Moonfall and picked apart every 30 seconds of the film going, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong.
I say we rate this sucker.
Okay.
I think Chris should go first.
Yeah, because we gave a prior one as we went in, and now, Chris, your overall view of the film.
Yes,
1 to 5, the Brian Donahue.
Oh, patented, 1 to 5.
The patented Brian Donahue rating system.
Are we doing points, like a 0.5?
Yeah, you can do whatever.
Okay. I gotta say, I think maybe I feel so bad.
Just go with your heart, man. Go with your heart.
2.5 for me, because I appreciated a lot of what it was doing, but I didn't have fun watching it. I didn't enjoy it. It's not something that I want to watch again. But I'm curious about, because it's not like a bad movie where it's just it's forgettable. It's memorable. There's just a lot of weird stuff where I feel like I need to watch video essays about it.
It's a very complicated film with complications on top of complications.
Yes, exactly.
So we're going to go back to those who had rated earlier in the day. Adina, your original rating was?
It was 3.5. And I think that's still where I am. And it's really, it is that stuff with Jill, insta loving on Sam. And then the last part of it, where he's having, it is a, dream, or he's insane, whatever and maybe that's because at this point, that's kind of almost an overdone trope. You don't, it's too easy and out. That was all a dream, or even though it was only a portion of the movie. These days, not necessarily a fan of. I think it's too, at the time, and when I first saw it in high school, I was more, seems a little new and a little interesting. But now I'm kind of over that. So, but the first half of the movie and everything, all the metaphors, all those details, all that statement on bureaucracy and technology, and all those things are great. So I'm still in that 3.5 range.
Okay. I'm going to still stick where I said, Chris, I gave it a 4 because I've always loved it. I've always still love it. And I could watch it again and just keep picking out all these unique and interesting scenes and characters and moments that I like. So I'm going to hold with my 4. And Mr. Brian Donahue, you gave us a
0.5 stars.
Oh, a 0.5. Wow.
I'm hoping that
feel
he's
bad
going up.
Then about my 2.5.
Hoping he's going up.
That's why I was encouraging you, Chris, to just go with your heart.
I appreciate you.
So,
and you don't have to watch it again, Brian.
Yeah, no, that's don't.
I would not. You
have to watch it once for every star you give it.
In that case, a 0.2 stars.
No. I was being silly.
You guys stayed with your rating, and there were some interesting things you guys pointed out. But honestly, for me, I think we've harped on this time and time again in our podcast. These little fun recording sessions where we all get together and do this. Where will we watch it again? And I like movies that I can watch again and enjoy again. And I'm gonna say, if I had to rate, I'm gonna rate Starship Troopers a little higher than this film.
Whoa.
That's
interesting.
That's how while this film was interesting, I'm glad I watched it once, just for the historicity, the history lesson of this being a strange science fiction film that did terrible when it came out, but gained a cult following. And I think the thing has some charm in it. The acting's good, all that stuff. it's not my thing. I mean, I just for me it was nice try. Not I didn't like it. So
okay, can I be honest with you, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what I thought you were going to feel.
Right.
Based on your reaction to other films that we've discussed, including of giving Ghostbusters a
yeah.
It's all right. I don't have to see it again, and other films. But I do appreciate the fact that you sat down and watched it.
Oh yeah.
Rather than just saying, going to the first 5 minutes of the film, going, no, I don't want to watch this. I will be the conscientious observer. You guys can talk about it all you want. I don't want to talk about it. But you did watch it. And that's the most important thing, is that we all should do that. Even films. I mean, I told you, I did not watch Moonfall when we had the discussion because I was going to pay $20 to rent it. But on my birthday,
it's good that you saved the money. Yeah.
See, I'd rather, I don't know.
But on my birthday, I watched the movie for only $3.99. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I watched it, because if I didn't watch it, I would have been a hypocrite. In what I just said about you, and saying, Brian, that you did watch it. And that's the most important thing. We have to give things a view. We can't just say they're good or bad.
Right.
Though there's a lot of information out there. Like I said, I didn't have to watch Moonfall, but there was so much out there, almost like I watched the movie.
Yeah. And I want to say too, to on the flip side of that, like, I get why you guys like it, but you have a history with it too that I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of it. And I feel like there are some films I don't lean towards or like, but there I'm sure there are films that I do like that you guys would not rate nearly as high as me either. So I just, this type of I guess for me, if it's gonna be this, I don't know if the humor didn't hit me right too, and that's part of it. To me, I just felt like I just got to watch it to see what happens to this poor chap,
Yeah. Well, and like I said at the beginning, I think some of the reason why I still enjoy it is the nostalgia aspect of it. Not, if I was watching this cold right now, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
But again, I also am a Monty Python fan. So it's really, really, if I were to watch some Monty Python now that I haven't seen, I don't know if there is any I haven't seen. There might be some, but I think I pretty thoroughly went through their catalog back in high school.
Is it really that close to the style?
I don't think so.
It's
because that's where I'm like, that's one thing I was surprised at. Because I know how much I laughed at the Holy Grail film. Well, I laughed out loud maybe once or twice during this film. So I guess it was not supposed to be the same. I understand that too.
Not the films, but if the Monty Python, the sketch comedy series, the films came out after those.
But
Monty Python Flying Circus, but all those sketches, those were written by different members of the cast and acted by different members. Terry Gilliam, and each of them have their own style. So this was definitely a Terry Gilliam style film. And he did one that I actually wound up not liking, was The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Oh, yeah.
I think that might be how I learned about Brazil, because that came out while I was in high school. And so it might have been part of then I learned, he did this. Let me go watch this. I didn't enjoy The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, but I did enjoy this at the time. But like I said, if you watch the Monty Python Flying Circus sketch thing, there's different styles of the different stuff. So knowing this is Terry Gilliam, which is not, even though Terry Gilliam was in the other Monty Python movies, I don't think he wrote those.
No,
so there's a
and he did
there's
very
overlap
little
of different styles.
He did very little acting. He did all the special effects, all the artwork and all that. That's what he was known for.
Yeah.
He was a director. He was a filmmaker. He wasn't Minister of Funny Walks, Silly Walks. He wasn't Penguin on the Tail.
And he's a dead parrot.
Yes, we're having a cheese shop and going over all the cheeses. No,
we don't have any. Or the bookshop where he's trying to find a book and they don't have he keeps asking for all these obscure books. It's the same thing as the cheese shop, only it's the reverse, and it's perfect.
But I guess my point being is if I were to see, and if I were to see Monty Python now that I hadn't ever seen before, but again, I don't think that exists. I think I have seen it all. I don't know how I would react.
But
I will compare this to. Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
For me, it seems like, again, like maybe if you look at it, this is Terry Gilliam, possibly, but it just seemed like there was like a couple of moments that seemed to have Monty Python-esque humor. But like I wanted like, I don't know, discussions about nothing and like arguing about silly, like there wasn't enough of.
You want to have an argument? You want to go to the argument meeting?
Yeah, stuff like that.
No,
so
this
maybe
is an argument. This is
you're just simply raising your voice. You're just contradicting. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. So
now
good, I don't know.
I will say this. If you're going to compare it to one of the other Monty Python films, this is more like The Meaning of Life, which is a very dark. Yeah. And that's a dark film as well. Yes. That's very dark in that style of humor, but it also has.
I can't sing the song I was going to sing.
There was one line. What was it? Say hi to the twins for me. Oh, they're triplets. How time flies. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. How can
I know? That's the nonsensical stuff.
That's a Monty Python-esque line. I'm like, okay, that's
Michael Palin. He's like, I feel like he's also what you expect to see a little bit more in that, and him playing like to me, he's playing like the most darkest character in this film is. It's jarring, but in a humorous way.
And really, to me, one of the most darkest moments of the film, and also I hate to say one of the funniest, is when they walk into the secretary office and she's taking dictation of torture, and she's smiling. She's oh yes, he'll be with you in just a moment, and she's just typing away.
Yeah,
and I always thought that was like that is dark humor. That is dark.
So all of this was to say, like, Brian, if I was in your shoes where I hadn't seen the movie, I was just seeing it now and didn't have an old school deep love of all the Monty Python stuff, I might have also been rating it as like closer to what you're rating it. That was what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I love Monty Python. I can quote their stuff for hours, but like, I don't know. It's one of those where it's not a bad movie because it was going for something. It's definitely not that it's not memorable. It's just, I don't know. It's a little too dark, I guess. Maybe is like, just like okay, well now I feel like garbage.
So this was your first viewing of it, Chris?
First time.
Okay. So you're right up there with Brian.
And it's like 1984, but 1984, I feel like you expect going into it that it's going to like, there's already so much around it that you kind of know where it's going.
And that's why I put a link on the for the commercial that came out in 1984 for Apple computers.
Oh, that was
shown
classic.
Only one time. That was shown during the Super Bowl. Only one time.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then Ridley Scott made that commercial. And it's when I saw that, it's like this is running into what this type of film was. Is the fighting against the bureaucracy, the standing out, that this is different, that it's not just what everybody has to do and must do. So, yeah. But, well, if any other thoughts? Otherwise, we will conclude. Chris, I know you were late coming to the show. Is there anything you want to offer?
No other thoughts. Just I want more explanation as to what happened and why, because it was like sometime in the 20th century. I'm like, so I would have liked some like explanation as to, okay, why did things go this way? Did the 80s happen in this timeline? And then I don't know, there was some deviation, or I just want more like, hey, this is everything that happened that led to this weird bureaucracy dystopia.
Well, I'm sorry that we can't contact Mr. Gillian and say, can you give us a backstory, a prequel of this film? But we just kind of, it's kind of like what Brian said. We walk in with a dream sequence and then we get into a movie. And it's like, what? I wasn't ready for that. Okay. So yeah, maybe there isn't, they never intended for a backstory. It just exists.
Yeah.
It just exists. So.
I do have one final thing to say. Let's encourage our listeners to either on our Facebook page, our Instagram account, when we post this episode, to tell us a sentence or two of your thoughts. What would you rate this film? Mm-hmm. Have you seen this film? Does this episode make you want to watch it, to check it out, to see if you agree with me and Cris more, or Steve or Dina more, and interact with us a little bit on this. But I think this would be a great film to do that with, because it is so just different than a lot of what we have discussed on the show. So
yeah, you're right.
Let us know what you think.
This isn't a traditional sci-fi film. This wasn't aliens. This wasn't spaceships. This wasn't the future. There wasn't even a DeLorean in the movie, you know, time machine, whatever. So yeah, this is science fiction, but it's dark science fiction. That's, I guess, if you want to call
dystopian.
it so. Dystopian. Yes. And with that, we come to the end of another interesting film discussion. I truly advise you, as we've just said, if you've not seen this film, please go and rent it for yourself. It's available on Amazon Prime Video for the low price of $4.29, much less than a Starbucks latte, which is, of course, another cult product, and much more enjoyable. And Amazon, not yet a sponsor. Huh?
I call Starbucks $5. You're at least gonna spend $5 if you walk in the store.
So this is really a better deal than a latte. There you go. So go ahead and do it, kids. But Amazon, not yet a sponsor of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast, but Jeff Bezos, if you're listening, please call us. We'd be happy to endorse your product on our show.
1-800, we'll take your money.
Thank you very much. And as a reminder, the Big Sci-Fi Podcast is a proud member of the Trek Geeks Network. Go to it and enjoy all the other content available to you. And as always, we thank you, our loyal listeners, for following us. We look forward to your comments, and they can be sent to our email address of the Big Sci-Fi Podcast at gmail.com. Go to our Facebook page and post your thoughts or even your funny memes. We love it when you share stuff with us. And be sure to be at Trek Long Island Convention, May 31st to June the 2nd. We'll be there. Won't you as well? And as always, I leave you with these parting words. Look to the sky. Live long and prosper. Brazil.